Hi, everybody, and welcome to my channel, Planted Not Buried. I am the podcast host, I'm the speaker, and we are on episode 7. That's following on YouTube. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. So far, we have talked about our calling versus our purpose. We have talked about resilience over resentment, power from anger, triggered, internal need for validation, why smart people fail. We have covered a lot of things. And as I've been waiting to come back in front of you guys and truly wait for a message from the Holy Spirit to speak, I don't want to speak amiss. I want to be dead on target for where we are, especially in my life. When I tend to speak out of my own understanding, usually it doesn't generate what was supposed to be produced, which is healing, communication, wisdom, understanding, not in my own eyes, but so that you can truly see Christ for who he is, even in the midst of your relationships. So, without further ado, let's get into episode 7. This is titled, Don't Leave That Relationship Until.
Everyday People is a segment of my show that I want to dedicate for those that are literally in this world but not of it, those that are even of this world, to come and to be healed, to come and let light be, let there be a transformation in their life. That when they come into this atmosphere, they're healed.
As women, we tend to get ourselves emotionally involved in relationships that end up letting us being hurt. And we tend to blame the man when it's really something within us that God is trying to break free. What I've learned is that we as women, we tend to pick the same, especially when it is coming in terms of the way that we want to be in a relationship with someone. If you notice the way that your grandmother picked her man, your mother, your great great grandmother, your aunts, your cousins, we tend to pick along the same patterns because we come from a family. Family tend to think alike. This is not where the curse is. It stays that way if we don't understand what God is doing for you in particular. When we are in a relationship, we tend to not see our worth as women. We tend to not see our worth as believers and not listening to the generation that came before. As believers, we have been tricked into believing, especially as women, that in a marriage you're not going to go through anything, or in a relationship, or don't submit to your boyfriend, submit to your husband. And although there's some truth that lies behind some of those things, the issue is we keep putting the issue off on the man instead of looking within ourselves to where we are flawed. And that's when things get tricky. What I've realized in my life and what God is bringing me through, even in this moment, is that you have to recognize and discern who is your helpmate. And you will not understand who your helpmate is if you first don't understand your purpose, your calling, your assignment, which, if you don't know the difference between those, please go back to episode 1. I don't want to get this off a topic, but just to give you a little bit of insight of what that looks like, I'll use this as an example. Say, for instance, there's a position that you may qualify for, and in that position, there's 25 other candidates that also may qualify. And say, for instance, these 25 people are all on a Zoom call at the same time, or Skype or whatever, just to make it realistic, or even a FaceTime call, that it's like a panel interview and everyone is going to be doing it at the same time. Only those 25 people that got an invitation will be called. Out of all of the applicants that applied for this job, only 25 received an invitation for a call. And I hope I didn't mix up my words in explaining that. Difference between called and chosen. The way you are almost pre-selected to be called. Many are called. So there is a selection process that God uses, but to be chosen is very different. So over this time, you've been getting applicants, you've been getting dating applicants, you've been having boyfriends, you've been having girlfriends, and that it seems as though any of them could have worked. You realize that you've been dating the same person with just a different face. So what makes the person that you're with now different? Why are you hesitant for this person? And again, this is not a conversation for one who does not already know their purpose and their calling, and they've been with someone that they are questioning. I want to be very specific. I want to be very particular with this group of people, especially right now. This does not apply to you. Skip it, save it for later. Share this with someone that you think this is for. But I want to get to the meat of this. I really want to get into the understanding of this. Many are called, few are chosen. Now, say for instance, the interview process, and when you are dating, your interview process should be very specific and detailed and oriented to, again, your purpose, your assignment, your calling. Your partner has the unique ability to be a helpmate, but what are they helping you with if you don't know that reason? Recently, what I've realized is that I've needed a helpmate. But where I think I need help, whether it was financial stability or emotional support, I don't know the things. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't realize that what I needed most was emotional support. Emotional support is mm, it's an area where love can be displayed, but it's not necessarily the action of love. And I want to get this correct. I want to get this correct for you. I want to get this correct for me, and for especially for the men and the women that be watching this later on. If you know that you are called to lead a person, to lead a group, to lead a nation, if you know that you are called and that you are chosen to, for example, I want to use myself to publicly speak, to be able to articulate what God has given me raw and to give it to you guys, not perfected, but give it into a way that it is now edible for you to digest. Being so, I need someone to keep me balanced. I need someone to keep me sturdy. I need someone to help me stay motivated and disciplined with the things of God. Where I get that wrong, and where a lot of us has gotten that wrong, is thinking that the helpmate is going to help you with all of those things, and that's not necessarily true. Where we also get it wrong, and this is specifically for my Christian people, is that we think our helpmate is coming with no flaws, no insecurities, because, oh, they're a new creation in Christ, or they're a man of God. They fast and they pray. Listen, in Galatians chapter 5, it talks about not only the fruits of the Spirit, but it also talks about the sin that so easily trips us up. And although drunkenness and enviness and lasciviousness and lust and malice and witchcraft and sorcery and all of those things were added in the list, boasting is also in the list. We think that, okay, because my significant other is not struggling with drinking, or my significant other is not struggling with porn, that boasting is not equally sin, that witchcraft is not so easily uh, considered sin. For we all sin, but that doesn't make that person a sinner. That's for a whole nother topic, another day. We're getting into some things, and I'm just going to wrap us back around. Where we lose it as women is we think that this man is coming holier than thou and without any flaws. And I know you probably sit there and say, oh, Juwanna, I don't do that. I don't do that. Or you think that your wife is coming. A lot of Christian men think that God is just going to plant her at your doorstep. That's not necessarily the case. What I find is that we are lacking, especially on a man's side, we are lacking the boldness to go and proclaim what is actively yours. If you know that a particular woman possesses the qualities and the mindset that's going to help you in your purpose, you would rather her send subliminal messages through a video. You would rather her tiptoe around the question instead of being bold and going and getting what's yours, which should be your wife. Because he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord, which means it's a finding, it's a process, it's a discovering thing. You don't just see a woman and say, that's a wife. It has to be discovered. A lot of us, we rush to get into relationships not knowing that marriage is sanctification, that the relationship that you're entering in is utilized by God to sanctify each other. Well, what are you being sanctified for if you're perfect? Christ is the one that makes you perfect. But we get into these relationships because we're at our wits' end, because we earnestly have a disdain for some of the habits that our partner has, and we could almost miss out on them. Do you think that Abraham was everything that Sarah was? Do you think that Sarah was everything that Abraham needed? And when I say was, is do you think Sarah was everything that Abraham wanted in a spouse? Just because she's pretty on the outside, you don't know the qualities of a man or a woman until it's put through fire. So often people think that this is like I get when men say they know when they know, and we almost wear it as if it's a badge of honor to say, oh, I met this person and in 3 months we got married. What have you, I don't want to judge and speak erroneously, but what have you been through to know that your love is going to withstand the times? What do you know? I'm not saying that you have to completely wait until everything is perfect before you marry someone, but the relationship is going to be tested. The only way you know if someone is sent by God is when you are being purified through fire. When that person's being purified through fire, when the relationship is being purified by fire, the relationship will stand. I mean, we were talking about purification and that God had made us golden vessels. Not everyone, but there are certain people that God has made golden vessels. Vessels hold weight. Vessels hold water because he's pouring something in. The vessels or vats, if you will, can hold liquid. Whether you have water, you have wine, you have both. I do believe that both represent spiritualness. Wine comes from pressing of grapes. It comes from a crushing of grapes. So in order for your marriage to be fruitful, one, it has to go through a series of pruning. In order to age like fine wine, that means that you have to look after it. You have to steward over it. You have to make sure the temperament is right. You have to make sure it's in the right location. Some of the best wine are grown on the side of a cliff in Italy, literally on the side of a cliff in Italy, and the way that the salt water rushes, the way that the water smashes against the rocks and smashes against the grapes, it gives this distinct taste that you can only find in that location. And so oftentimes we think that our marriage is going to produce such a great harvest and our wine is going to be lovely to taste. Dry wine is different than a sweet wine. Is different from a red blend. And so often we look at other marriages, especially in social media, and we think that, oh, if I could just have a marriage like that, if I could have a man that takes care of me like that, if I could have a millionaire, if I could have this, if he could have that. And we forget to look at the fruit that God has already given us. God is in the business of pruning. He is in the business of taking more from you so that he can give more of him. The pain that goes with that, the agony that goes with that. That's why I said marriage is a sanctification. Marriage is a process of enduring. You're not just putting up with someone's attitude. You're not just putting up with the likes and the dislikes of someone. To know that you have found someone is to know that you found someone to stand in the fire with you. Because life is going to feel like hell. Life is going to feel like a fiery furnace, whether you're single or you're married. If anything, it helps to be in a relationship with someone that sees the value in you before you've been completely purified by fire. That single quality to see you. Sight is given by God. Physical sight by man. Because I can make you see anything about me, but God will reveal truth to you. Don't leave that relationship until you understand that you will go through a similar thing with the next person. Your type is a mentality. You've heard me speak about this before. Your type is a mentality of where you are. And if you know that God has given you a new mindset, if you know He's given you a growth mindset, if you know the plans that God has for you, He says, I know the plans that I have for you. That was not to mean that you won't know the plans, that you shouldn't inquire about the plans, that you shouldn't investigate the plans that God has for you. That means that you are supposed to ask Him for wisdom. You were supposed to ask Him to sharpen your discernment to know, hey, is this person for real? Is this person really for me? What it looks like is you laying down your expectations and lowering your expectations to the ground of what you think this person is going to look like, sound like, fast like, pray like, how he's going to give. I'm not saying that you should be with someone that's abusive. No, I think that don't expect a perfect person. And when you found someone, I don't want to say someone that's good enough, but it's good enough. Every good and perfect thing comes from the Lord. Be careful when you vent to family about your frustrations, and especially when it comes to terms of relationships, because they don't have vision for your life. You do. They don't have vision for your marriage. They have an imagination. And there's a difference between having a vision, having insight, and having an imagination of what they think your relationship should be like, what you think your relationship should be like. I don't want to sound cliche. Always go to God when you are dating someone and ask Him to reveal and to expose the intentions of that person's heart. And when things start playing out, this is not for you to shun the person. This is not for you to make the person feel less than. This is for you to understand how to operate and how to move. Don't leave the person until you understand that if you keep waiting for the perfect time to be in a relationship, you will miss out on that relationship. You're being sanctified, you're being renewed, you're being helped, you're being loved. It's not in the way you want it, it's in the way you need it. God is not in the business of giving you what you want, but He's in the business of giving you what you need. And I want to share this that I almost walked out. I did. I almost walked out of my frustrations because I put something down because of my level of sacrifice. And I'm judging the level of sacrifice as if I'm the one that even had the heart to sacrifice. That comes from God. To be able to have something stirred up in your spirit to say, Lord, I want to give you more. It's authentic, it's genuine. And for you to force your significant other to increase the level of sacrifice is not genuine. That's pressure. That's pressure. That's pressure. That's nagging. That's not encouraging. Your faith is encouraging. Your gentleness, your meekness is encouraging. Your love for them, your ability to love that person at their worst. That's how you know. Love is not judgmental. Love is not nagging. Love is not pushing. And while I have my scriptures here, as I have verses here, I would love 1 Corinthians chapter 13 when it talks about what love is. My God, the way of love. If you've never read the book of Corinthians, especially 1 Corinthians, there's two books, first and the second, then I implore you to do so. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 4, and it reads, love is patient. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It's not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. Highlight that piece right there, because every time I meet somebody with my interpretation of love, it's not accepted. Every single time I meet someone with my expectation of love, what love is to me, God sharpens it. He uses it. He edifies me and saying, that's not love. That's not even the best form of love that you can give, and it's rejected. And when I think I'm being rejected, God says, well, they're rejecting me. But who is he talking about in that moment? Is he talking about the person that you tried to love out of your own strength, or is he talking about you? What I come to realize is that he's definitely talking about me. He's definitely talking about you. Excuse me, I want to finish reading. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. People want to be loved differently, but people don't want to be loved biblically. People don't want to be loved in a way that God loves. And that is becoming the danger in our relationships, and the danger of why people aren't lasting in relationships anymore, where people don't desire to be married anymore because they think everyone who's in a marriage is miserable. You've been told incorrectly. Don't think that because it's hard work that it's misery. Again, you are working out your sanctification. You were called to work out your sanctification. Marriage allows you the ability to do that. And it's interesting that as people of God, we think that you are going to be sanctified and purified all by yourself, and you seclude yourself in your house. You stay where you are. You don't want to be around people, and people, your interaction with people really reflects where your heart truly is. That's where you're tested. That's when the trials come about. Why would you need to be tried and tested if you were staying by yourself, for yourself, and only surrounding yourself? It doesn't work that way. Never has, never will. Don't leave the relationship until you ask God to give you a dream. And the reason why I say a dream is because when you don't believe that someone is truly for you, you'll miss out on it. But our desire to please God in every way, in everything that we do, seek the face of God. I know the relationship is not going the way that you think it should go. It's not for your will, it's for his will. I know the relationship isn't the way that you wanted to do things. This is not for you, it's for his will. In a relationship, you sacrifice. Ladies, be careful thinking he's coming in a pretty package. He's not. We're driving